I'm Josh Lipton and I commute by bike. I'm here at the North American Handmade Bike Show in Austin, Texas. I'm here with Eric Estlund of Winter Bicycles. How you doing, Eric?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How did you become a cyclist?
I became, I think, a cyclist, so somebody who has, in my opinion, a bike in their life, kind of as a more than just a bike, pretty early. It was about, first grade or so. I started to actually commute by bike as part of what I did, and stuck with that and used that as a way to explore as a kid and be social in high school and college, and yeah, pretty early on, so kind of right from the beginning.
Yeah. And do you currently commute by bike?
I do. Yeah. Commute by bike.
Yeah. And where are you from and what's your commute?
Sure, I'm from Springfield, Oregon, which is right next to Eugene. Eugene and Springfield share a pretty well-developed bike path system. So my commute is a mix of that and then just urban road riding.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to dive into some questions about bicycle advocacy. Tell me how your work as a frame builder relates to bicycle advocacy.
Sure. Bicycle advocacy, I think, a lot of what I see as important currently in the U.S. Is the idea of getting more people on bikes. And that's a lot of what I do, as far as trying to find a way of making people comfortable and having their needs met in a way that's applicable to their daily lives. And that's different throughout the country, just like bike advocacy is different throughout the country. So, what are the individual's needs for the individual's location? So I think trying to meet those needs for their particular application are great. That's what I do.
Custom fit bicycle advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. From a business perspective, what are the most important costs and benefits that you must consider when putting your time into bicycle advocacy?
I would say how you use your time is probably the most important thing. I think there's, just like with cycling, I think there's things that are approachable, realistic goals for individuals and approachable, realistic goals for their communities. So I think trying to figure out what it is that you can do in your community, or what you as a group can do in your community to develop cycling there. Right. That might be so much as organizing small group rides, just get more people on the roads if you live in a place that's not a reality. If you live in a place that already has a relatively developed trail system, or a relatively developed bike lane, bike route, bike box system, what can you do to do incremental improvements on that? I think it's real easy to get, just like in this show, it's real easy to get lost in kind of the big picture, right, and not make any progress. You walk into this room and you just look at all the bikes and you get blown over. You walk into a city and you try to build a new trail system and get more people on bikes and integrate things into schools, and doing all of that at once might not be realistic. It might just be too much for the local community and the local resources to sustain. So I think trying to find the place that you can start and then grow from is important.
Yeah, excellent. On to some design principles for commuter bikes. Mm-hmm. Would you choose 3 words to describe an ideal commuter bike?
Rider-specific design. So I think this kind of goes to what we've been talking about with, what's a realistic goal for the big picture, what's a realistic goal for the individual as well. Bike commuting means very different things in different parts of the country, and in the same country, same town, it might mean different things for different people. Somebody might want a really race-inspired bike that they can put fenders on, because that's the type of bike that they'll enjoy riding. Somebody might want to have essentially a car replacement, have lots of cargo capacity, and really upright position to be seen in traffic, to see in traffic. I think designing a bike for the individual so that they use it more frequently is maybe more important than designing the ideal commuter bike, because there isn't one.
Right. What inspired you to begin building and to continue building bicycles?
Sure, I think these same principles of bikes for individuals is what I got excited about. I've done a lot of bike sales, bike retail, bike fitting, and I think the bike industry in general does a really good job, especially now. There's so many good bikes available in bike stores. But a good bike isn't necessarily a great bike for that person. This idea of what are the specific features that are good for you as a rider, where you don't have to make compromises. You don't have to buy, a sport touring bike just because you want to carry stuff if you like a road race feel. I mean, there's ways of I've got bikes in the booth here that are split that category in a way that's appropriate for those individuals. So maybe more touring, or maybe more road bike, or more kind of commuter upright bike. So the idea of picking specific features and kind of doing away with what a rider might not want in their vehicle.
What are the majority of your bikes used for?
I do a pretty large percentage of multi-use kind of split category bikes, a lot of which are everyday commuter bikes that have some other thing going on. So it might be the commuter bike that somebody wants to race train on, so go out and bang out lots of road miles. I do some commuting bikes that make great weekend tours. I do a lot of those. I do a fair number of race or event or ride type specific bikes. But as a group, I think that split category bike is probably the biggest thing I'm working on currently.
If money was no object, what bicycle accessories would you integrate directly into the bicycle frame, and which would you build mounting points for?
Sure. In general, I don't like to integrate specific accessories into the bike. I think the development for the accessory market is too rapidly changing, and I think things change for the better in a lot of ways on a regular basis. You look at, say, LED lights now compared to a year ago or 2 years ago or certainly 5 years ago. Lights are different sizes, they have different battery types, they have different mounting types. So that type of thing I don't generally like to hardwire directly into the bike and the frame. The bikes and the frames that I build, I like to think of as lifelong, everyday, heirloom type products. They're long time products, generally speaking. So for me, I like to have the accessory mounting points that somebody might use now, but not have them terribly divergent from industry standards. So a bike that I build racks for instance, I don't want to have those mounting points so different from what's commonly available in the industry for a couple reasons. If somebody 5 years down the road, their luggage needs change, if they're not in a position to buy something from me, I want them to still be able to grow and develop with the bike. Likewise, for a touring bike, if somebody's out on the road and they crash their bike and twist up their rack, I don't want them to total their frame because it's welded directly to it. I want that to be a replaceable part that's field serviceable.
Right. Excellent. As a follow-up, what are your favorite bicycle accessories?
Sure, yeah, I think the specific accessories change all the time. There's great hubs, dynamo hub systems that I really enjoy. There's great lighting systems. Who makes them changes year to year, because that stuff is, it's the arms race of accessories, it seems.
Right.
But I think the categories that I am most appreciative of are, especially in the wet Northwest where I am, fenders, I think, make a huge difference. People that don't ride with fenders have no idea how good they could have it. Right. Quality lighting system that's meets their needs. There's incredibly bright trail lights that are horrendous for town use, and there are very tiny blinking lights that are great for, hazard avoidance, but not particularly helpful. So there's a huge range. So lights that are appropriate for that person. Right. And then baggage or luggage that meets somebody's needs. That might be a messenger bag, that might be a handlebar bag, that might be a full custom pannier set. But the idea of being able to carry your stuff, should you choose to, it's a great thing. That really goes a long way to making it so people can use their bikes daily and enjoy it.
Yes, I agree. I want to talk a little about electric bikes. Can you talk about the constraints and/or opportunity for adding electric assist systems to your bikes?
Sure. I don't currently do a lot of electric bike work. In my past as a mechanic and in my present as a mechanic, I still do help some folks with electric needs that are met elsewhere. Right. For my own bikes, I think the current battery life issues and weight issues preclude me from integrating them fully. Saw a recent video of a new kind of wonder electric bike that has a 6-mile range, which is great, but my commute's 8 miles, so that would be
right.
Fantastic part of the way and horrendous the rest of the way. I think those electric bike needs for certain folks and certain applications make a lot of sense. I think for the general public, I think there's still a lot of limitations that at least stop me from really delving a lot of resources into it.
Yeah.
I also think a lot of folks, going back to the advocacy end of things, a lot of non-cyclists or people that haven't integrated bikes into their daily routine think electric will help them in a lot of ways. In some cases that's true, especially if people have unique physical needs. But in a lot of cases I think it's a misperception. I don't think they realize that a nice quality, even if it's not a custom bike, but a good quality bike store level bike if it fits well, is going to be relatively easy to ride over the distances they need it to. So I think some of it comes back to rider education. All that said, I think electric bikes and power assist bikes and power reserve bikes, the technology is developing. So next year, my story might change.
Right. And if someone were to give you an electric assist kit, would you be interested in designing a bike for it?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, no, I think again, it depends on the application.
Yep.
So I think if somebody had a specific need, and this goes back to what all my bikes are for. If somebody has a specific need and the technology, be it a derailleur part or an electric part, makes sense for their application, then sure, let's figure out how to integrate that in a way that works.
Yeah, great. Do you have any thoughts on commuting bike design trends that have been picked up by the big players in the cycling industry?
Sure, I think the cycling industry in general, bike commuting trends, so things like front racks and rear racks and fenders and upright bars and one-piece bar stems, all that stuff's been done since the dawn of bicycles. So it's, I think the larger bike industry follows market trends and develops market trends. So they lose some of that stuff. A lot of that's held on in this type of industry. And just like the big bike industry, you'll see small builders following some of those trends or developing some of those trends. So I think there's some reference to see what's been successful here, and then the big guys sort of pick it up again, which is great. I think it's a great way of getting more people on bikes. A lot of folks will go for these, and a lot of folks want a bike they can get around on town on, and realistically, their budget isn't going to allow something specific for them. So if a big bike company can integrate, those comfort features and those performance features in a way that isn't just market driven, but actually has a real application, I think it's great. It gets more people on bikes.
Yeah. Imagine that I'm a potential buyer, but not a bike building connoisseur. What features of your commuter bikes would you want to emphasize to me? We could talk about
sure.
Your bike here, if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll talk about this one, I guess. So this was a bike that was actually designed for a customer in that position. This is his second bike as an adult. His last one has been going for about 2.5 decades strong as his only bike. And he really likes cycling. He really likes what he does on a bike every day, but he was less concerned with all the sort of bells and whistles of what custom bikes could be in a craft sense. He was less concerned about the craft and more interested in a good bike for his needs.
Right.
So something like that, what we did is we figured out what his needs were. He wanted to commute on it daily with some rear panniers. He wanted to use his own handlebar-mounted lighting system. He wanted something that was comfortable but had a gear range where it could feel like a sport road kind of race gearing, but also have enough range where if he went out on the weekends and did 2 to 4 day tours, he could still climb hills and the bike would still handle well with a modest front load. So this was a case where, as a card-carrying bike geek, I had a lot of fun with the details, but I didn't feel like I had to burden him with that. So, the specific lug shape, he wanted lugs because he liked the look, but, how those were trimmed wasn't something that he, totally nerded out on. He knew that he needed to carry luggage, but he wasn't really specific about the shapes. So this was a place where we were able to look at his needs, identify the features that were helpful as far as, powerful brakes, good fenders, a tire that worked for his comfort and performance needs, but not get lost in the specifics of what those were. This was a place where he really let me take care of the details that I know about and I'm good with integrating to meet his, he's an expert on himself. So we figured out what his needs were, what his wants were, and then he let me do what I do, which is build the product that meets those needs.
Yep. If you don't mind me asking, how much does this bike go for?
Sure, a bike like this one with a fair amount of paint upgrades. So there's the color, texture, a lot of hand carving in the lugs, the chrome work on the racks. The racks themselves, I build those. I build the stems, and then a pretty nice, pretty much Ultegra start to finish group. Some Paul brakes and some fill hubs. A bike like this one would be right around $6,000. Okay. Complete sort of road bikes for me without the racks usually start right around $3,500, and then kind of go from there depending on how we kit it out, what sort of aesthetic touches somebody's interested in, detailing, things like that.
Right, great. Yeah. Well, Eric, thanks for showing us your bike, and thanks for your great work.
Absolutely, thanks for coming over.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm Josh Lipton, and I commute by bike.